Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zolotech, and iOS 26 Beta 1 has been out for a couple weeks now, and iOS 18.6 Beta 1 released this week as well. But there's even more to talk about since the iOS 26 Beta 1 is out. What's new video. We'll talk about some Apple news, we have a ton of new features to cover as well, and we'll also talk about the overall experience, not just on iOS 26 Beta 1, but on iOS 18.6, iOS 18.5, and not just my experience, but your experience based off the YouTube community poll on the post page. At the time of this video, there's over 30,000 votes and 374 comments. I've gone through all the comments to determine what the experience is like for everyone, so be sure to stick around toward the end of the video where I'll read some of your comments as well. Now, Apple Camp is back this week, and Apple opened this up at your local Apple store, and you can sign up for this, where you'll have different sessions about 90 minutes long, where kids can learn about things such as Final Cut Pro, other apps, and more. If you go to your local Apple store here, you can see that they have it here where it says Apple Camp Direct Your Own Friendship Film on iPad. You can sign up for it, and I'll leave a link in the description below, but it shows one of my local Apple stores, and then you can sign up where it says we invite kids age 6 to 10 and their families to explore the magic of filmmaking on iPad with iMovie. So that's something that's available now and runs from now until July. So be sure to check it out if you're interested. Apple this week announced a new store in Perth, Australia, where it closes on June 25th, the current one, and the new one opens on June 27th. They're celebrating this along with some new wallpaper that you can grab, and you'll see local entertainment and more. So I'll link this in the description below if you'd like to check it out along with the new wallpaper. Apple also updated its iPhone and iPad pages in the EU with new information about battery labels in the EU to meet regulatory requirements for battery efficiency. They published this very lengthy document, over 40 pages long, going over how they actually got the efficiency, how they measured it, and more. So again, I'll link this one in the description as well, but let me know if you're seeing those new battery labels in the EU, maybe on the Apple page about the iPhone and iPad. Now, Apple Intelligence this week went down for most people running iOS 26 betas. If you went to activate your assistant here, it would just activate the normal version that was the old one without the ring around the outside of the display. So if you went into your settings and then you went to Apple Intelligence and Siri, you would just see that it was downloading again. It looked like it uninstalled itself and then had to re-download the models. So this was going on for about half a day at this point, and it's finally fixed for most people. If it's not fixed for you, turn off Apple Intelligence, turn it back on, and it should fix it. One thing we've learned about macOS Tahoe this week is that it drops support for FireWire. FireWire was once a Mac staple and how you connected the original iPod to your Mac when it was released, so it's no longer available. FireWire 400 and 800 are no longer available on macOS Tahoe, but that doesn't really matter as the devices it support don't really have that option anymore. Apple also released something new to promote the new F1 movie, and according to Wired, they actually had modules on the cars to hide the cameras. So I'll link that in the description. It's a pretty neat article to see how they modularize different cameras, iPhone cameras inside of parts on F1 cars to get some of their movie footage. And then they released an immersive trailer with Apple Vision Pro with a lap around an F1 track. So if that's something you're interested in and you have an Apple Vision Pro, it's available now. Now, iPhone mirroring is one of those features we've had in different parts of the world for some time now. It lets you utilize your iPhone directly on your Mac without touching the iPhone itself. Unfortunately, it's still not available in the EU. Apple told a French website Numerama this week that iPhone mirroring will remain unavailable in the European Union for now due to continued regulatory uncertainty there. So it seems odd that you can't just mirror your iPhone on your Mac, but for now it's unavailable. So hopefully they'll fix that fairly soon. Now, as far as new features this week, Apple has really added so much more when it comes to the features of iOS 26, and they've really been over the top or extra with small and thoughtful changes as well. There's little notifications, nice animations, and much more. So there's quite a few things to talk about, and the first new thing is a hidden ringtone. It was found in iOS 26, posted on X, and also Aaron P613 posted it as well. I'll link it in the description so you can take a listen to it, as it's sort of a nice new experimental sound. So maybe we'll see this in Beta 2, we don't really know, but hopefully we'll get a bunch of new ringtones soon. And speaking of ringtones, you can now set custom ringtones directly by downloading the music or the sound directly into your Files app. So if we go into Files here, if you press and hold on your file, go to Share, and within the Share sheet, We'll scroll down here. You'll see it now says use as ringtone. We can use this as a ringtone. You may want to modify it to about 30 seconds or so, but you can now utilize any MP3 or sound file as a ringtone if you'd like. So maybe you recorded something yourself. Maybe you've downloaded something royalty free. You now have the option to use that. So that's a great option, and you'll be able to use that throughout. Hopefully they don't take that away with beta 2. Now, when it comes to notes, there's a small update here as well. If we go into the Notes app, and it's been very laggy here, within Notes, if maybe I typed something, I hit undo, you'll see redo is not an option there. If we press and hold though, you'll get redo back. So we can redo, press and hold. We've got the options here. So we can undo, press and hold again, redo. So that's a nice little way to get to it. However, I'd still like to see both options here, as there's more than enough room to have both undo and redo on the display. If we go ahead and add a widget and select music, there's a new pinned music widget available. So we have a smaller size and a larger size available. If you want to add that widget, you can quickly access your pinned music at this point. Also within music, if you're using the music app itself and maybe you're playing a song that has really nice album art that's full screen and you want to see it on your lock screen, this now carries over to third-party apps. So maybe you use Spotify or Tidal or some other one. They'll be able to utilize full screen animated album art, it seems, with iOS 26. So it won't just be limited to Apple Music. Also, it seems when you scroll home from the lock screen, so we'll do that again and go to the home screen here, based on how fast you scroll, the overall animation changes. So if we go really slow, sometimes they come in slow, or if we go really fast, they seem to speed up and react to how you're actually moving. Sometimes this is more evident than others. However, this is really heating up the phone, just going back and forth between that. Something else that's updated in iOS 26 is there's a new API for developers for Wi-Fi Aware, which is basically the technology behind AirDrop, but is allowed for third-party developers or apps. This will basically allow them to use something similar to AirDrop to transfer between devices utilizing their apps. And there's a new web page about it as well. You can see here. So this is translated, but you can see more information here, and Apple gives an example of how it could work. So it says the API can also be used to facilitate the connection of accessories such as drones and smart glasses via Wi-Fi. So that's something that's been updated. I'll link to this article in the description below. Within Photos, you'll see at the bottom, if we're in an album, we now have the option to show highlights. There's not a whole lot in here, but it is an option if you have a bunch of different photos or videos in here, and you can see those highlights along with your options here to sort them as well by a custom order. Within the Preview app, if we go into a PDF, this is actually just a screenshot that's extended, so it sort of views it as a PDF. If I go to the options in the upper right, we now have the option for a dark background. So we can switch between dark and light. So you'll see there, because it's already a dark background, I think, it switches to light, but you get the idea. You can switch between that. So if you're working on a PDF and you require or prefer a light or dark background, you can switch between either or. If we go into the Mail app, one thing I really appreciate is the status being in the upper left now. This is a nice new touch where they've sort of gone over the top a little bit, moved this around, made it more readable, and after it's connected, it will show that it's done or show that you're sending mail as well. So it's a nice little update there. Also, if you're in the phone app and maybe you have multiple SIM cards in place and you place a call, it will ask you which line you would like to use. So you can pick between a work or home or whatever SIM card you have. Also, if we go into our data here within settings, so we'll go up to cellular, and if we turn on data roaming, we get a new little splash screen that says data roaming lets you stay connected when you're in an area not covered by your carrier. So it goes into more information, and then you can turn it on or say not now. So we'll turn it on and then leave it on, or you could turn it back off, but it just gives more information. Also, to go along with cellular, if we go to general, then about, if we press and hold on our EID, IMEI, or any of the others here, we can press and hold, and we now have the option for copy or barcode. So it makes it easier to copy that if you're trying to share it with a carrier, maybe move it to another device. Also, some people are seeing under cellular the option to transfer to an Android phone, but it's not all carriers just yet. And then some are also seeing the option to transfer an eSIM from an Android phone when you're setting up the iPhone. So some nice options there. Hopefully they'll add them for all carriers in the future, where you can just more easily switch between iPhones or Android phones. If we go into Safari, then we go to our share options. Under share, if we go to add to home screen, we have a new option to open as a web app. This is something we don't have in iOS 18.5 or 18.6. You, of course, can add it to your home screen, but now you can open it as a web app if you'd like to. Now, also something else people have been asking me about is on the Apple Watch with watchOS 26. If we go to our control center, you'll see that I have the option for water, where we can eject water. This can be added just by going to Edit and then add the actual option here. However, some people have said that this is doing this automatically when it senses water in the speaker. So I don't know if you've experienced this, but I'd love to hear from you if maybe once you take it out of the water, if it's automatically ejecting that water from the speaker itself. You still have the option there, but maybe that's why it wasn't there to begin with, because it was doing it automatically and you don't really need it anymore. Now, when it comes to updates this coming week, we could see iOS 18.5.1, but at this point, I'm losing hope that Apple's actually working on it. It seems like there's no sign of it, and unless they're just very good at hiding it at this point, it looks like it may be something we don't see, and Apple just may wait until iOS 18.6. But there's lots of issues with iOS 18.5 currently. However, when it comes to iOS 18.6 Beta 2, I would expect that in a couple weeks probably, maybe around the time of June 30th or July 1st. And then, of course, iOS 26 Beta 2 will probably be as soon as Monday or Tuesday. If we find it stable, we could see the public beta at the end of the week, or Apple could release it in early July, like they said. But we have seen them release it a little bit early before. But I definitely expect Beta 2 as soon as Monday or Tuesday. That's typically what they do. It would be very odd if we don't see it this coming week. Of course, we'll have more and more betas throughout the summer with a public release in the second or third week of September. So that's usually what we have, and it is getting a little bit better, maybe with that update to the iPhone 16 Pro and 15 models, but overall it still needs a lot of work. When it comes to iOS 18.5 and 18.6, well, 18.5 definitely has a lot of issues. I've talked about all of them in depth in the past. Even my wife is complaining about it now. I've had many people have it just not charge. Her iPad stopped charging. I had to reboot it and then it would charge again. My daughter has Wi-Fi connectivity issues, and I never hear from them with many problems. However, it seems like it's fairly buggy, and we still need some sort of an update. However, iOS 18.6 Beta 1 generally has a pretty good experience, and it may show the beginning of context-aware Siri. And within Photos, if you double-tap the bottom bar, bring up Talk to Siri, some people are seeing a different message here where it could be more context-aware, saying, "What can I do?" But so far, it doesn't do anything. So maybe we're seeing the beginnings of that, but it's a little bit early for that. However, it does seem to be much better and much more stable for most people, fixing things such as network issues. However, some report some odd low volume issues, but many people say iOS 18.6 so far is much more refined. So hopefully we'll get this out in time. 18.5.1 is definitely needed to fix those lockup bugs and all the other little issues we're seeing, but it seems like Apple's just pushing on with iOS 18.6. Now, iOS 26 Beta 1 is an early beta, so it will definitely have bugs. We've talked about this, and there's going to be issues. And the top issue right now is severe battery drain and overheating. It's definitely working a lot in the background, just using the phone right now. Before this, getting ready for this video, the phone was incredibly hot for no reason. I didn't do anything other than change the wallpaper, so some odd issues going on. The next major issue is laggy performance and choppy or unpolished animations. You've probably seen some throughout this video, and as I'm scrolling, sometimes it will just completely lock up. In fact, I was at the checkout line at the supermarket today, picking something up. I went to use Apple Pay, and it was completely frozen. There was just sort of a hint of what was on the display. Not even the always on display, but just a hint of the background from the home screen on the display, and it wouldn't wake up. It took about 30 seconds, and then it unfroze. So that's an odd issue I've had. I've had it reboot a few times on its own. Lots of odd issues here with the UI just stopping responding. So iPadOS 26 Beta 1 will lock up completely for me as well if I open up a few windows, maybe 5 or 6 windows, especially if they have motion in them as well. There's frequent app crashes, but that's not to be unexpected in an early beta. You'll see it's laggy right there. And also connectivity issues with Wi-Fi dropping, Bluetooth not maintaining a solid connection. CarPlay is very slow and laggy in third-party apps for me, such as Google Maps. Some report dialing a recent callback and it dialing the wrong number. Alarms aren't working. There's some odd volume issues. For example, using CarPlay, if Siri talks, then my volume on my music will drop down or a podcast will drop down. So some really odd issues going on here. But again, it's a very early beta, and I would say it's actually better than it was with maybe iOS 18 for me. So some people report it's better as far as that goes. However, battery life isn't great, but we'll take a look at that in just a moment. Like I mentioned, heat and thermals overall seem to be pretty bad sometimes, other times it's fine. It feels like it's cooling down right now, but let's take a look compared to 18.6, which feels nice and cool. The iPhone with iOS 26 definitely feels a bit warm. And as you can see on the iOS 26 device on iPhone 16 Pro Max, we're at about 34.5 degrees Celsius. On iOS 18.6 Beta 1, we're at about 31.5 is the highest I saw there. So again, definitely a little bit warmer. Like I said, sometimes it gets incredibly hot. Right now it's a little bit cooler, but then you might just do something random and it heats up quite a bit. So it's very odd, the overall usability of it. But again, Apple's maybe processing in something in the background, getting information from it to try and figure out how to make this better in the future. Now, if you're wondering if you should install iOS 26 Beta 1, absolutely not. I say typically if you have to ask that question, you probably shouldn't do it. Wait for the public beta, as that's when it's typically stable enough. But either way, if you need to downgrade, you'll have to use a computer to do that. Now, as far as battery life, let's go ahead and take a look. We'll go into settings, and then we'll go down to battery health. You'll see I'm at 100% with 236 cycles. You can see more information here with Coconut Battery. That's a Mac app that you can download outside the App Store. And as far as battery life in general, it's pretty terrible for me. So if we go to battery usage, you'll see here, well, this was 110% the other day with only 3 hours and 5 minutes of screen active time, 3 hours and 11 minutes of screen idle time. The day before I used 70% and again, 3 hours and 16 minutes. So in general, not very good at all. About 3 hours is what I can get out of this phone right now. So not great, but again, it's an early beta. I'm not going to complain, but 70 to 80% of you in the YouTube community poll said that you report very poor or bad battery life. So again, if battery is important to you, do not install it. Performance-wise, it's, well, choppy. You can see that right there. Sometimes it's fast. I probably need to restart this. Sometimes it's choppy. Seeing it just locked up there. It's just not great overall sometimes. So I'll lock it, unlock it, and then it sort of comes back and speeds up. But then again, it gets really slow. So opening the camera is okay sometimes, but then again, scrolling, maybe using ProMotion, you'll see I have to get over to the app library. It just really slows down sometimes. So overall, sometimes it's great, but it needs a reboot from time to time. As far as the benchmarks, well, let me reboot this and then I'll run them and see what we get. Benchmarks completed, and iOS 18.6 Beta 1 is doing pretty well at 3,506 for single-core, 8,523 for multi-core. There's definitely something going on in the background with iOS 26 Beta 1 for me, as it's only 2,862 for single-core, 7,815 for multi-core. So not great. I'm sure if I ran it again, it would bump up. You can see some of the history here where I ran it before and it was a little bit better. So it will vary. Typically, I find that I have to run it about 3 times and then it's normal. So not really a whole lot to go by there. And since it's an early beta, it's not that big of an issue overall. Now, as far as the experience you're having, let's take a look at some of your comments. Gabriel Moses Lee said, updated to iOS 18.6 developer beta 1 on my 15 Pro Max. 18.5 has some heating issues and battery drain. After I update to 18.6 developer beta 1, the heating went away, only battery drain. That is because it's processing in the background right now. Battery life is better on 18.6 dev beta 1, 92% battery health, 227 charge cycles, 15 Pro Max. Nathan Lewis Videos says, running 26 Beta 1 on a 15 Pro. Runs smoothly 75% of the time, but when wireless charging and using FaceTime, it gets unbelievably hot. Lokman Syed says, iOS 26 Beta 1 has been very buggy, but I decided to switch to my other 16 Pro Max and try iOS 18.6 Beta 1. iOS 26 Beta 1 has a lot more bugs, screen dims randomly, a lot of touch responsive issues, lockups and app freezing, horrific battery drain, a lot of lag. 18.6 Beta 1 has been far more stable. Only one bug with the screen dimming randomly, but no other bugs. Incredible battery life, no lags, the best beta I've ever tried. James Sands, 1987, hopefully I said that properly. 18.6, it's not even in the poll, and I did forget to put it in the poll. To add, I watched your video on 18.6, and when the chance popped up, I upgraded to it. I was having weird issues on 18.5, as you mentioned in the video, Wi-Fi and just slow performance. Has been less than a day, and I already feel a difference. Dentist KK said, so far so good, iOS 26 Beta 1 re-release on iPhone 16 Pro, few shutterings, keyboard lags, random resprings, heat-ups, battery drain here and there, but nothing major or basic problems to hamper daily usage, apart from having to charge up the phone at least twice twice a day. It could be the best first beta, period. Chad Smith 3722 said, waiting for the iOS 26 public beta before I change over. And so that's probably a pretty good idea. It's clear that iOS 26 definitely is an early beta, but for me it isn't any worse than previous early betas, but it obviously needs a lot of work. As Apple continues to refine it, I think the design and usability will improve greatly, and we could see some of that as soon as next week with Beta 2. So that's everything for week 2 of iOS 26 Beta 1 and of course iOS 18.6 Beta 1's first week. Let me know if you've found any other features I haven't mentioned in previous videos and how it's going for you in the comments below. I'm looking forward to trying out Beta 2, seeing what's new, and hopefully the public beta as well really fixes a lot of the issues like they typically do. I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.